Tara, basa na tayo natin history book, History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 24. Wait lang guys Today is 24 March 2023. History of the Filipino People by History of the Filipino People, Part 6 na tayo, the Third Republic. Topic number 28. Basa. May takip na yung aking para hindi ako lamigin sa aircon. Tsaka maaga pa dito guys. Kita mo puro tilaok ng manok yan. Ayun. Kasasabi ko lang. 28. External Affairs. An independent country, the Republic of the Philippines, has anchored her foreign policy on three paramount planks: close association with the United States, sympathy for the aspirations of all dependent countries, particularly of Asia, and close cooperation with the United Nations. These three planks have been and continue to be implemented in various ways. The first plank has been criticized by the nationalists for its subservience to the United States in the belief that the interests of the Republic do not always coincide with the interests of the United States. The second plank, which includes closer ties with the countries of Asia, has also been criticized for not having been implemented to the letter. The nationalist viewpoint has been that the foreign policy of the Republic must be rooted in its national interest, since the essence of any foreign policy is to work for the interest of the country. The Garcia administration had so far led the way in anchoring its foreign policy on the Filipino first principle. Foreign policy flanks. When the Philippines finally regained their independence on July 4, 1946, she found herself, so to speak, balancing on a bamboo pole placed across a river. Destitute and suffering from the effects of the recently concluded war, her political leaders could only look to America for assistance and economic salvation, for it was with America that the country had conducted the experiment in mass democracy, and with whom she had fought the Grim War. These historic ties, popularly and misleadingly called special relations with the United States, determined the direction of Philippine foreign policy. Accordingly, when President Rojas stood up to deliver his inaugural address that morning of July 4, 1946, he laid down the first plank of Philippine foreign policy: the closest cooperation with the United States in all matters concerning our common defense and security. One result of the war was the partial liquidation of Western imperialism in the Orient, leading to the political emancipation of Pakistan, India, Ceylon, Burma, Indonesia, and Malaya, with the emergence. Yung Malaysia dati, Malaya pala yan. Malaya. With the emergence of these Asian states, the Philippines as a geographic entity of Southeast Asia. Kasi nakalagay guys, One result of the war was the partial liquidation of Western imperialism in the Orient, leading to the political emancipation of Pakistan, India, Ceylon, Burma, Indonesia, and Malaya. With the emergence of these ASEAN states, the Philippines as a geographic entity of Southeast Asia became tangent to its development. And increasing awareness of the emerging political setup led President Rojas to initiate the second plank of Philippine foreign policy: sympathy for the political aspiration of all subject peoples, especially those of Asia, and the extension of full cooperation in any plan or effort to raise the standards of living in the neighboring countries. Earlier, when war was rushing to its conclusion, the Philippines joined the United Nations as a full-fledged member and shared, along with other nations on the side of the democracies, the hope of a universal peace and security. The sentiment was expressed by then President Sergio Osmeña and affirmed by succeeding presidents. The third plank, therefore, of Philippine foreign policy is the full and active participation of the Philippines in the ideals and work of the United Nations. First plank, implementation. The first plank of United foreign policy revolved around Filipino-American Sobrang sorry siguro nila. Ano yung hinaharang ko po yan sa aircon kasi malamig pag umaga dito. Pag umaga lang, pero pag tanghali sobrang init na po. Hindi natin pwede patayin yung aircon. Natutulog si Bunso. The third plank, okay. First plank implementation. The first plank of Philippine foreign policy revolved around Filipino-American relations. The change from colonial status to independence necessitated readjustments in the relations between the Philippines and the United States. Consequently, the two countries entered into treaties and agreements designed to continue the close friendship that has existed between them approximately since 1902. The Philippines accepted having the no better alternative, the Belt Trade Act and the Tidings Rehabilitation Act of 1946 in order to proceed with the rehabilitation and reconstruction of damaged agriculture industries, buildings, roads, bridges, and schoolhouses. Recognizing that the recent war had confirmed the mutuality of interest of the Philippines and the United States in matters relating to the defense of their respective territories, and that measures should be taken to promote their security, the Philippines and the United States concluded on March 14, 1947. March 14, birthday ng anak ko yan. Pero yung 1947, siyempre hindi. States concluded on March 14, 1947, a military agreement by which the former granted the latter the right to retain the use of bases in the Philippines for a period of 99 years to permit the United States to use such bases as the latter may determine according to military necessity, and to enter into negotiations with the United States concerning the expansion of such bases. Ostensibly, the military bases are designed to strengthen the American armed forces in the Philippines in order to enable her to protect the latter from external aggression. While this may be true, it is nevertheless true that in a world divided between democracy and communism, those forces are designed also to protect American interests in Southeast Asia. The maintenance of American bases in the Philippines was not enough to ensure the security of the country and of American interests in Asia. On March 21, 1947, the military assistance pact was concluded between the two countries, under which the United States would furnish arms, ammunition, equipment, and supplies to the armed forces of the Philippines. At the same time, the agreement also provided for the creation of a military advisory group composed of Filipino and American personnel whose function was to provide such advice and assistance to the Philippines as is necessary to accomplish the purposes of the agreement. The pact was to last for 5 years. On June 26, 1953, an exchange of notes which had the effect of a formal agreement extended the effectivity of the military assistance pact from July 5, 1953 until terminated by either party. To show their complete unity and determination to defend themselves against external armed attack, both countries concluded the Mutual Defense Treaty on August 13, 1951. Among other things, the treaty provides for the settlement of international disputes in which they may get involved by peaceful means and for consultation with each other regarding the implementation of the treaty. Significantly, the treaty provides that its party recognizes that an armed attack in the Pacific area on either of the parties would be dangerous to its own peace and safety, and declares that it would act to meet the common dangers in accordance with its constitutional processes. This particular provision of the treaty, while at first sight favorable to the Philippines, is actually An empty declaration since, as pointed out by Senator Claro Embrito, the foremost Filipino expert on Philippine affairs and a consistent critic of Philippine foreign policy, the agreement does not provide for an automatic declaration of war on the part of the United States against any external aggressor of the Philippines. He correctly pointed out that in case of an external aggression against the Philippines, the treaty merely provides for action to meet the common dangers in accordance with its constitutional processes, meaning that the United States might not come to the assistance of the Philippines if the American Congress, which has the authority to declare war, does not see fit to make such declaration. After the death of Senator Recto on October 2, 1960 in Rome, the American presidents from Eisenhower to Johnson yun, including Secretary of State Dean Rust, tried to dissipate the fear and skepticism of the knowledgeable Filipinos, especially the nationalists among them, by the assurance that the United States would come to the aid of the Philippines at once in case of an aggression by a third party. But in September 1966, an American embassy spokesman But in September 1966, an American embassy spokesman in Manila, in a speech before Filipino businessmen, realistically admitted in connection with President Franklin Roosevelt's wartime promise to the Filipinos that the United States would pay for every Carabao killed during the war, that Roosevelt's promise was not binding on the American Congress. An honest admission that the promise of one American president is written on water. Oh. So, dapat babayaran tayo. In the face of this confession, the Filipino nationalists had reason to rebuke and ridicule the naive among their countrymen for pleading and repeating the discredited and mythical special relations with the United States. On the economic front, the Philippines and the United States have concluded agreements designed to help the former economically. The Agreement of July 4, 1946, an offshoot of The Agreement of July 4, 1946, an offshoot of the Bill Trade Act and the Tidings Rehabilitation Act, provided for the amendment of the Philippine Constitution in order to give parity rights to the Americans. Another agreement, known as the Carino-Foster Agreement of November 14, 1950, ay maaga na sa amin guys, maingay na paligid, provided for assistance to the Philippines on the solution of age-old social and economic problems gravely aggravated by the last war, in exchange for President Carino's promise to recommend to Congress legislation to bring about the era of progress and plenty as recommended by the Bill Survey Mission. The American government agreed to furnish with the least possible delay technical assistance, particularly in the world of taxation and revenue collection, social legislation, and economic development. By virtue of this provision, the Philippines created the Philippine Council for U.S. Aid, PHILCUSA. Nakalagay guys. Philippines created the Philippine Council for U.S. Aid, PHILCUSA, which would collaborate with the American Agency, the Economic Cooperation Administration, ECA. Under this agreement, the PHILCUSA is in cooperation with an aid of the ECA instituted social and economic projects designed to improve the well-being of the Filipinos. Philippine economy, however, has been slow in its development owing to many factors, one of which being the onerous provisions of the Bill Trade Act of 1946 to remove or at least modified him in order to give the Philippines an even chance at economic survival. President Magsaysay sent a mission to the United States in 1954 under the chairmanship of Senator Jose P. Laurel for the purpose of working for the removal of the patent inequalities in the Bill Trade Act. Laurel dealt with his American counterpart James M. Langley, and after months of negotiation, both countries entered into an agreement known as Laurel-Langley Agreement on December 15, 1954. The Laurel-Langley Agreement, among other things, provides for the acceleration of the application of the Philippine duties on imports from the United States and declaration of the application of United States duties on imports from the Philippines during the period January 1, 1956 to July 3, 1974. This means that ordinary customs duties on American goods would be increased gradually from 25% between 1956 and 1958 to 50% between 1959 and 1961 to 75% between 1962 and 1964 to 90% between 1965 and 1973 and to 100% between January 1, 1974 and July 3, 1974. On the other hand, ordinary customs duties on Philippine goods entering the United States would be increased from 5% between 1956 and 1958 to 10% between 1959 and 1961 to 20% from 1962 to 1964 to 40% between 1965 and 1967 to 60% between 1968 and 1970 to 80% between 1971 and 1974 and to 100% between January 1, 1974 and July 3, 1974. In other words, the rate of increase in the customs duties to be imposed on American goods from 1956 to 1974 is greater than the rate of increase in the customs duties to be imposed on Philippine goods over the same period. On the cultural front, the Philippines and the United States entered into an agreement on June 7, 1948, under the both governments would exchange official publications in a desire to pursue a research program to the humanitarian uses of atomic energy. The Philippines made an agreement with the United States on July 27, 1955, whereby the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission agreed to list the Philippines uranium required as initial and replacement fuel in the operation of research reactors, which the Philippine government would construct in consultation with the Commission. The University of the Philippines of Diliman, Quezon City was selected. Ang tagal na pala nitong UP. Was selected as the site where the atomic reactor was later constructed. Cultural relations between the two countries have been broadened to include an exchange of professors and students. Hundreds of students and professionals have gone and are still going to the United States either to take advanced studies or to observe the workings of the American democracy. The latter, given in the form of travel grants, enable Filipinos to study American life and institutions of close quarters. Most, if not all, of the travel grants are usually disguised junkets, which give the Filipinos the opportunity to jump from one American city to another within the space of 3 months. In some cases, the grants serve but little purpose, for the grantees learn advanced American methods and techniques in particular areas of studies which cannot successfully applied in the Philippines owing and economic conditions. Be successfully applied in the Philippines owing first to lack of sufficient funds, and second to different social and economic conditions. At any rate, the travel grants served the American purpose of disseminating things American to the Filipino grantees, who, as a matter of goodwill, rave over what they saw and experienced in America. Most of these grantees return to the Philippines as converted brown Americans who propagate the American way of life among the Boers and the yokels. On the American side, Fulbright professors and students have come and gone and are still coming and going, and have made at least some of the invaluable contributions to knowledge of the Philippines. A few, however, are third raters and have not provided Filipino students with perceptive analysis of the subjects they are supposed to have mastered. On the whole, the Fulbright professors and students have contributed much in further commenting Filipino-American relations and in making the folk back home appreciate the worth of the Filipinos and their way of life. Curiously enough, the number of Filipino-American marriages after independence seems to have increased tremendously. Such intimate collaboration cannot by any such intimate collaboration cannot by any stretch of the imagination be taken as a sign of anti-Americanism. Natutuloy-tuloy ko kasi siya, guys. Pasensya na. Ayun. Ulitin ko ha. Such intimate collaboration cannot by any stretch of the imagination be taken as a sign of anti-Americanism. Bukas na itong problems of Phil-American relations for 25 March 2023. Bye everyone. God bless.